Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. So when you look at the future obligations of Social Security, the actual national debt is like double what people think it is.
Elon Musk blasting Social Security as a broken system that everyone knows won't be there when younger generations retire. Musk says Social Security needs an overhaul, starting with fraud, and the numbers don't lie. $147 million in improper payments just last year. 2 million dead people still listed as alive in the system, and 60 million in payments to accounts linked to the deceased. But the agency isn't off the hook. At least 7,000 employees expected to be let go. Taylor, Elon Musk sounds a lot like you last week talking about Social Security and the Ponzi scheme. Do you care to elaborate?
I know. Well, last week I forgot the company that I was so excited to be in that I was a little nervous to say it out loud. I was like, you guys, I think I'm going to say something controversial. Social Security feels like a Ponzi scheme. And you all looked at me and you were like, that's not controversial. That's normal. Everyone thinks it's a Ponzi scheme. So I'm just glad that I'm in friendly fire, I should say, friendly company here. Look, it is, right? We know the definition from Bernie Madoff of most recent memory of a good Ponzi scheme is when the incoming money stops, the outgoing money runs out. That is effectively Social Security. If you don't have incoming money, you run out. It is not self-supporting via returns, which I would argue it should have been. I have a brilliant idea. Let's kill all of the gender studies in kindergarten. Let's do financial management instead. And then we can opt out if we choose, and I will manage my own money myself because, Jackie, as you and I have discussed, we are better stewards of our money than the government is. Let me opt out. I will pay my own way.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that. And when I think about Social Security, we know it's a Ponzi scheme. We know the younger paying for the older have already paid in. This was their money that they put in. They deserve to get it. This is the time that they need it. To a certain degree, I think America has accepted that it was a bad experiment with Social Security and it's gone on and on like this. And so now we have to just kind of perpetuate it. Fine, we'll continue to do that for now. But having said that, the list of waste and fraud is completely unacceptable. 147 million in improper payments to 3,800 beneficiaries that didn't really deserve it. Where are the ones with the death? Let's see, the 2 million deceased individuals, they failed to update their records. And it goes on and on like this. There was a great piece in the Post that was talking about Medicaid too and how much fraud and waste that there is in Medicaid. Why is it in this country that impoverished people, according to that article, the numbers have gone down 10 million, but for some reason in the same time period, 20 more million people were tapping into Medicaid because people aren't monitoring it. The states aren't monitoring it properly, and everyone is receiving benefits that they're not supposed to be. At a certain point, even though these systems are not perfect and we accept that, we do need to clean them up. And that is why I think there is so much support for Elon Musk and Dems.
Yeah, you got the fraud cleanup for sure, okay. But Charles, these guys want to opt out. They want to manage their own money. I think a lot of people want to do that. Some people say, well, you could keep the system, but you could move out the retirement age, or you can make the tax, you can pay taxes on a higher set of income. Okay, all these things could help. The problem is anybody talks about any of this stuff and they get branded as a Social Security killer. Is there any hope that a guy like Elon Musk could break that trend?
Well, Elon Musk could, but can an elected official Can anyone in the White House do it? There's got to be someone who's not looking to be reelected for sure. It is a third well of American politics, no matter how logically you talk about it. And yes, it was a scam from day one. It goes back to Otto von Bismarck in the late 1800s.
We're gonna do some German history here.
Right, socialism was sweeping Europe.
Yeah.
He was one of the most brilliant politicians in history. Last year, every speech I gave in the first half of the year was focused on Bismarck and Karl Marx, two Germans. That's because that's what we're trying to decide in the world. And what he saw as socialism was coming into Germany, he says, I gotta counter this. So he offered old age security, but he knew that no one would live long enough to get it. So it was a win-win. We did the same thing. In 1935, when we implemented Social Security, women lived to be 59, women lived to be 63, men lived to be 59. Right. So you can't get the benefits until 65. That was a long time before the first recipient got a benefit. So we sort of thought we were doing the same thing. It was never designed to truly actually help. President Bush, the first President Bush, he talked about, putting this money into the market, for instance.
Right.
And the media destroyed him. But if we had put it in the market, we might not be having this conversation right now.
Now, I just add this. If you go back to the inception of the program, though, we were in a very different America. In other words, if people were having kids the way they had kids back then, this system would not be in the peril that it's in.
It wouldn't be in the peril that it's in.
You can't predict the lifespans, but I'm just saying that when we started this thing, it was a very different cultural moment. Lydia, I think that's part of the bigger issue here is we are in a very different world than the world where Social Security was created. That seems to be the impetus for needing to do something different on Social Security.
And maybe that's why now is the perfect time to really talk about this and making real meaningful change. Can I tell you about one thing that's really been kind of grinding my gears when we're having this conversation and talking about rooting out the waste, fraud, and abuse? A frequent Democrat talking point you hear is that, oh, all of these fraudulent payments, like the 2 million dead people that you hear, the 147 million improper payments, they will often say, oh, but that only makes up about 1% of Social Security Administration, like as if that means we shouldn't be addressing it. Why are we making excuses for any type of waste, fraud, or abuse? We have like $36 trillion in debt. Isn't chipping down on that even a little bit just something noble and a worthwhile cause? And the other thing that I would point to is that this really has, I think, a public relations issue around it. Like to your point about any elected official that tries to go about fixing this problem is labeled as someone who's going to take away Social Security for everybody. There's a 2024 Kaiser Family Foundation study that's asked people about waste, fraud, and abuse and whether they thought it was a major concern with the Social Security program. 54% of people said yes, it is. That's more than half. That is actually much higher than what I was expecting to get back based on how we label politicians as like trying to, go about and fixing this problem. I think there's a real opportunity at this moment where there's an inflection point and we're trying to get our housekeeping back in order.
That's a good point. I agree. And I would also say that young people by and large think they're not going to get any of this money. Correct. They really think Social Security is not going to be there for them. And when you assume the thing is broken beyond repair for you, that's when you might open up to something a little bit more radical.
Because in addition to the fertility crisis, there's also the AI revolution, the robots taking jobs. I mean, we've got this issue, like if you are looking for future workers to somehow take care of people, older folks over the next 20, 30, 40 years, the math just doesn't add up. It just does not add up. And, making a retirement maybe 5 years down the line, younger people may accept that, but even then, we still have some issues because we've sort of overpromised what the payouts would be.
Yeah.
And if we don't put it in an investment, and maybe, listen, President Trump, is very open-minded talking about the crypto reserve. We've got to put this money into an investment that historically, over long periods of time, returns enough money to keep the promise.